I want to welcome everyone to the Westside Neighborhood Association Coalition Debate Meet and Greet. One of our focus areas is to provide a way for the District 5 community to be involved in making informed voting decisions. WNAC does not endorse any political candidate. My name is Selma Peña, with the president of the Westwood Fair Neighborhood Association, and I also lead the Westside Neighborhood Association Coalition. We want to welcome and thank Tommy Atkinson for being our moderator today. We also thank the candidates, Teri Castillo and Rudy Lopez. I want to thank the planning committee, Ivy Jamanillo, Cynthia Spielman, Eric Estrada, Rachel Costa, and myself. Okay. Our sponsors, Commissioner Justin Rodriguez, Precinct 2, Constable Ruben Pinheiro, Precinct 1, and deputies, Rudy Vasquez, law firm, My City, My Home, Ladies of Valor, Empowerment, Eric Estrada, event live streaming production, Tim Kane, sound engineer, TBA, doing business, and for actions and event planning. And thank you for all the volunteers that have come out today to help. And now I'm going to hand it over to Marcella. She will do the
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Maricela Latson. I am also for this event. I'd like to ask first, before we start, that if there's anyone that opposed to mention or cell phone, put it off. But also, in front of the, because it's a live stream, so we definitely want everyone to be cognizant of that. So I'm going to go ahead and read off the ground rules. Ground rules are: candidates file will get 2 minutes. Questions will be 1 minute and 30 seconds each, with opportunity for a rebuttal with 30 seconds. 15 seconds alert, and then a stop. Closing will get 2 minutes each candidate. The candidates must abide by these guidelines. There will be no personal attacks, and please be respectful of the moderator and the timekeeper. The timekeeper is Ms. Andy Jaramillo. We also have a volunteer coordinator, Ms. Andy, as well. She's been assisting a lot of this event. And now I'm going to read the topics to you. The questions will be based on topics of homelessness, cultural preservation, SAWS and CBS inequities, displacement, incompatible development, home ownership, developer incentives, affordable housing, climate change, COVID response inequity, police reform, living wage reforms. At this moment, our moderator, Mr. Atkinson, will initiate the debate with a coin toss and with your president.
Can we have the candidates come up?
Good evening and welcome. Congratulations to each of you for taking the time to be here to invest in your backyard, in your neighborhood, in what you have come to know as your home, and to have a place that's decent and respectful and that's kept up by the city and that is served by a responsive and intelligent city council person. Your presence here tonight helps ensure they are indeed responsive, and that is the essence of great government as far as I'm concerned. Now, what I have here is I have the questions, but I need to flip a coin. So if I can. Okay. So can the two candidates come up here, please? They're behind me all the way. Go ahead. I appreciate appreciate that. Okay, well, but, you know, I'm gonna go ahead and flip the coin. Okay, very good. All right. Where are we here? Okay. Looks like it is tails. Okay. Fine. Okay. The first question that we have here is homelessness, link with housing and mental health, drug use, drug abuse issues. Please explain your ideas dealing with chronic homelessness while addressing the concerns of District 5 neighborhoods. Do you know how the residents, businesses in the surrounding area of Haven Cove have been affected? Okay, so you had teals, so yeah, we can do that. I think say 2 minutes on the intro. 2 minutes on the intro. Start.
Hello everyone, my name is Teri Castillo. I am the proud daughter of a Navy veteran and a migrant farm worker. I'm a generation resident of District 5. As a product of our poor zip code, I know that building a District 5 that works for everyone is long overdue. And that is why we are running a campaign fundamentally grounded in social and economic justice. Because as usual has landed us here, and it's going to take the bold commitment to our campaign and coalition building to ensure that we win a District 5 that works for us. For the last 6 years, I've worked in our neighborhood schools. I see the impact of city policy and the ways in which it impacts our students. In addition to that, I serve on the Tier 1 Neighborhood Coalition Steering Committee, so I understand the need for collaboration and ultimately the importance that no decision about neighborhoods should be made without neighborhoods. Alongside my neighbors of the Castillo Resident Association, we have steered the national conversation when it comes to public housing. Despite well-intentioned folks telling us that keeping public housing is impossible. As a historian of urban policy, I understand the ways that law and policy shape things. And we continue to react those under the guise of progress. I say enough is enough is enough. I am Teri Castillo, and I'm running to be your next city councilwoman, as I believe I have the experience. Thank you.
How's everybody doing tonight? First of all, let me thank every one of y'all for being out here tonight. It's really important for y'all to be informed and for y'all to be out here meeting your candidates and the people that want to run. I also want to thank one person here that I know has really hard at this, and that's Velma. On the side and the Westside for putting this on tonight because I know that they work really hard to do that. I also want to say that I'm a proud member of, say it the way Velma says, the WNAC. Also a proud member of WNAC. My name is Rudy Lopez. I am a lifelong resident of District 5. I live in District 5. I'm also in District 5. And I still live in my childhood. I'm taking care of my 8-year-old parents, or 87 and 80 actually. So I know what it's like for the seniors in our district just to get along in District 5 and get the services that they need in District 5. And on top of that, Rudy's been working really hard for 8 years with his neighborhood association. During the time that I've been with my neighborhood association, I've also worked on many projects in my neighborhood. I've helped to bring a hospital, emergency hospital. I've worked to bring in 400 new units at the Thompson Neighborhood Association. I've helped to bring in playgrounds at the Kennedy Park. So, and also been on commissions. I've been on the Budget Oversight Commission. I've been on the Port Regional Commission. And right now, just finished working up with the County Field Expansion Technical Advisory Commission. So, I've experienced. worked with my neighborhood association. I've already worked with developers to do responsible development in our neighborhoods. I've also brought new homes into our neighborhood, homes that are quality homes and affordable homes in our neighborhoods. Worked with the councilwoman's office and worked with all city government to make sure that things that need to happen on our neighborhood are happening. I know that when I get in there, I'm going to be ready for this job, and I'm going to be ready to serve every single one of you and listen to what everybody has to bring to the table. All the stakeholders need to be heard in our council office.
Very good. Okay, now let's move on to the second question here. Studies are showing that D5 or District 5 residents, homeowners, and renters are presently in danger of being displaced because of property speculation and investment in market rate development that is leading to exponential jumps in property tax appraisals and home prices. How will you help prevent displacement of homeowners and renters in our neighborhoods? Rudy, you're up.
Absolutely. We need to protect people who have been living in our homes for generations, right? We need to protect our legacy homeowners. So we need to look at, start how we're going to do this, right? We do the term for businesses. Maybe we need to be looking at terms for our homeowners, where we're freezing their taxes where they're at, and that the appreciation doesn't go up on their homes for those people who have been in their homes for generations. We need to be identifying those people who are at risk of losing their homes because of appreciation, and the right services and programs for them to be put into so that those people can stay exactly where they're at. I mean, we know, I've got my neighbors that have been there for years and years, and they're the best people. And it's not their fault that they can't keep up with the appreciation. We also need to be working with our city tax, our city commissioner, not commissioner, I'm sorry, our city tax appraiser, so that he's not going way out of market, so that he's not doing the appraisals that aren't fair to the people that are living there. So the last thing that we need to do is we also need to make sure that the folks that we're electing the right folks up into the state that are really running those taxes where they are.
Absolutely. I understand the city to build housing that is unaffordable to the established community. At that, we are failing to put in displacement mitigation measures, and we're allowing predatory real estate practices to take place in District 5. So what we must do is invest in programs that already exist but are severely underfunded. The Under One Roof program, majority of District 5 residents who have applied for the Under One Roof program, there's a long waiting list to get in, and there's not enough money. But the program exists, it's an award-winning program, and we need to be better to ensure that we prioritize investing in the programs that benefit the established communities rather than the construction of unaffordable housing. In addition to that, another way that we can mitigate displacement measures is by using city-owned lots. Within District 5, we have a wealth of city-owned vacant lots that we can activate to produce deeply and permanently affordable housing. We have the tools, and it's not that hard. It takes the political will to implement these policies. I'm proud to say that I'm the only candidate up here who has stood alongside public housing residents to challenge the mass displacement of our neighbors at the Alazana Pache Court.
Okay, we're told that we didn't get that number one question. Homelessness is linked with housing and mental health, drug abuse issues. Please explain your ideas on dealing with chronic homelessness. And please explain your ideas on dealing with chronic homelessness while addressing the concerns of D5 neighborhoods. And do you know how the residents, businesses, and surrounding area of have been affected?
So yeah, we all know that homelessness is an issue throughout District 5. In my neighborhood, in the Thompson neighborhood. We were having problems with homelessness. We were having problems with houseless people living in Kennedy Park. So it needs to be addressed. We need to make sure that we're addressing it in a holistic way, because homelessness is just not homelessness. There's mental illness. There's domestic violence. There's different things that are leading to homelessness, and we need to make sure that we're addressing it holistically. But let me tell you this first, though. The first thing that we need to do is we need to address those people who are at risk of becoming homeless, and we need to make sure that we're giving them the service that they need so that they don't become homeless and add on to that population. It's holistic. Again, like I said, we need to also be working with our veterans. We know that a lot of our homeless people are veterans, and we need to make sure that those veterans are getting the services they deserve. They fought for us. They fought for this country, and those veterans also need to get the services they deserve. They don't deserve to be homeless. So we need to hit it at all different angles. We need to be creative of how we're going to hit this. We need to make sure that they're in a home and not sleeping on the streets at any time.
Absolutely, right? When we talk about Haven for Hope and the impact it's having on the inner city and the surrounding neighborhoods, we need to acknowledge that homelessness is profitable, right? If it wasn't profitable, we would have already produced a solution for it. We have the solutions for it. I've had several conversations with County Commissioner Justin Rodriguez and Tommy Calvert, right? We've had conversations that yes, Haven for Hope exists. However, once folks complete their program, Haven for Hope, there's no affordable housing for folks to transition into. So what we need to do is a coalition build and have those conversations with our county commissioners on how we can use both city and county funds to construct transitional housing. In addition to that, right, you cannot police homelessness away. What we need to do is invest in mental health services and be sure that we're connecting folks to them, meeting them where they're at. Thank you.
All right. Next question here, and we'll start. Teri, is recently a welding shop that was constructed without pulling any permits was approved by the D5 Councilwoman's office in a residential neighborhood, even after the health risks and the quality of life issues were pointed out by the zoning commission. What is your plan to protect and support the resiliency of D5 neighborhoods? Teri?
Absolutely. It's my understanding that the surrounding neighborhood associations oppose this welding shop. Ultimately, I believe that the role of an elected official is to facilitate the will of our neighborhood. So the solution is listening to neighbors and what they oppose and supporting them in that opposition. In addition to that, we need to acknowledge that there's a lot of health hazards being implemented in the Westside. When it comes to industrial, what it is environmental racism, right? People see the South and Westside and believe that they can put whatever they want in District 5 and pay no attention to the health impact it's going to have on our neighborhood. A solution to that would be changing our Unified Development Code amendments to ensure that we mitigate the amount of industrial development that could take place within a neighborhood. You know, if you can have no more than 25% industrial in a neighborhood, because it is going to have health consequences for the surrounding neighborhood.
So I kind of know about the welding shop that they were talking about. I've heard a little bit about it and actually sit down and talk to some folks about it. But let me say this, that as a neighborhood association president, I know what it feels like to have developers come in and try to do something that's incompatible with the neighborhood. And I fought that. I fought it time and time again. So I know what it takes to fight those folks. Yes, we do need some changes to our zoning codes, and I'll admit that. But I know that as a councilman, what comes first is what the community wants, what the people in those communities want. And if they don't want that welding shop, if they don't want that construction company, if they don't want that bar, then we need to be listening to you, the people in the community, because that's what's important. The other thing that's important here is those neighborhood associations need to be heard. I'm a part of a neighborhood association. I'm the president of a neighborhood association, and I want to be heard. Just like you want to be heard, I will be there in that office listening to all of y'all, your concerns and your thoughts and your ideas.
Okay, Teri, what, how specifically do you promote home ownership?
Absolutely. When we look at the mayor's housing policy task force, it emphasizes the importance of producing rental units. So what we need to do is move away from this downtown centric model of development that has all of our resources concentrated downtown, constructing luxury development. So what we need to do is move away from the mayor's housing policy task force and away from this downtown model of development and ensure that we're investing in these city-owned vacant lots to produce deeply affordable housing. Because as it stands, the city's priority and within the current pipeline are more rental units, and those rental units rather are market rate. So not only are we producing more rentals, but they're unaffordable to the existing residents of District 5. They're unaffordable to the residents of San Antonio, and we need to do better, and we have an opportunity to, and it takes shifting our funding to work for us and investing in housing that we can afford to live in, that the average District 5 resident can afford to live in, not luxury development.
So everybody knows, everybody that knows me knows already that I am a stickler for home ownership. I think home ownership is what builds wealth in a family and builds generational wealth, right? Let's go back a little bit. Let's talk a little bit about the public housing, right? Public housing was meant to be transitional. So those folks that are living in public housing, we should be pushing them forward and helping them to get to home ownership. We need to be working with the city's services for first-time home buyers to make sure that those folks are getting homes. They need the education, they need the training, and they need the jobs to also hold on to a home, right? So we need to be doing that as well. But home ownership is very important, whatever it takes, and we need to be very, very creative about it to make sure that people are getting out and people are owning homes. There's pride in owning a home, and when you have pride in owning a home, you have pride in your neighborhoods. So that's what we need to be doing. We need to be helping folks transition from public housing to home ownership and becoming a part of a neighborhood that they're proud of. That's what we need to be doing.
Okay, Velma, it just reminded me that we have a rebuttal right on the part of each of you. So for 30 seconds, is that the time frame? Okay, so if you want to do that and then you can come back, go ahead. If you would like to, Teri. But you just said it and then you can come back and we want to say.
Absolutely. When it comes to the conversation of public housing residents, you know, it's not that simple, right? It takes work, there's steps, and I have the experience of following those steps. What we're seeing and what we had seen was the predatory eviction of our neighbors at the Alphonse Court. And through our organizing with the Historic Westside Residents Association that I'm an active member of, we challenged those predatory practices that were evicting our neighbors. Because we know that when you have an eviction on your record, it makes it nearly impossible to find another place to rent, and it makes it nearly impossible to own a home.
30 seconds.
Once again, you know, public housing, when it's meant to be, it's supposed to be transitional. We need to help people. We need to be helping people so that they can move out of transitional home. The Alexander Patrick Court, we understand that. We understand people need somewhere to live. And we need to give them good places to live. And we need to give them affordable places to live. I've already worked with developers over at Fort San Antonio at the Billy Mitchell Apartments to bring in 400 units.
Okay. Very good. Now, number 5, what is your perspective on the use of city incentives for mixed and affordable housing?
When we look at the current housing pipeline through the Mayor's Housing Policy Task Force, again, we're producing housing that District 5 residents cannot afford to live in. So we need to be sure that we are not blindly giving away tax abatements and tax incentives. We already know that District 5 schools are severely underfunded. We already know that District 5 residents are severely uninsured. So why then are we going to allow multi-million-dollar developers to pay zero into our school system, zero into the university healthcare system, and zero into the city, right? We need to be sure that we're collecting that city infrastructure needs of the established communities, and we should not be gifting our public money if the existing constituents of District 5 or San Antonio cannot enjoy or benefit from the project. In addition to that, we need to implement a community benefits agreement, which is a legally binding agreement between community stakeholders and developers to ensure that if our public money is given to a developer, community is given specific demands in return.
Absolutely. Now, when it comes to incentives, I mean, incentives are things that we are using to bring in development into our neighborhood, right? However, those incentives are your money, and we need to make sure that those developers are giving back to their community. One of the things that I've done with the residential apartments is I asked for affordable housing there, and they gave me the affordable housing. I asked for internet connection for those kids that were suffering during COVID, and we got internet connection. I believe that when we give money to developers, they need to be giving back to our community. On top of that, when we're giving money back to developers and we're giving it to developers, we need to hold them accountable. And so that when that time runs out, they don't just get up, pack up, and leave. We need to hold them accountable that they're going to have to stay there so many years after that incentive runs out, so that they're not packing out and they're not leaving empty buildings and they're not vacating buildings, and then we have a fight in our neighborhood. So we need to hold those developers accountable. I'm sorry. Okay. So we need to hold those developers accountable and make sure that they're giving back to our communities.
Go ahead. Have your.
I think it's important for us to highlight that we can invest in us. We can use these tax abatements and incentives in us. Why should we be giving them to multi-million-dollar developers when the existing established communities lack basic needs, lack sidewalks, streetlights, drainage? We need to be sure that we're using our public money for public good and meeting the needs of us, the established communities.
So those incentives for to developers, those are incentives needed to develop a neighborhood, right? We need to reinvest in our neighborhoods. But what I will say is I did vote for Prop A, which widens the scope of what we can use our bond money for. So we need sidewalks, if we need streets, if we need drainage, if we need lighting, that's what we have Prop A for. That's why I voted for Prop A, so that we can get those extra perks that we need. I voted for Prop A.
All right, very good. Let's see. Done. Okay, very good. Next question is in 2017 and 2018, the top 30% Saul's residential users underpaid by about $2.3 million per month. Subsidy paid for by the other 70% of the users. The lowest 10% of water using residential households made the largest contribution to that subsidy. If elected, what solutions will your office provide to ensure a more equitable system of billing based on actual water usage? Go ahead.
So absolutely, it's not fair. It's not fair at all that the people who make less are paying more, and the people who make more are paying less. So we need to be looking at this with a really good microscope to make sure that those people who are not deserving of paying less are actually paying less. My office will set up a committee to make sure that everyone is treated equally in this, and that those who can afford to pay more are paying more and not less like the rest of us. We got to look at it through Shirley Gonzalez's equity lens, the equity lens that she has, and make sure that we're using that model to make sure that those people who can afford to pay it are paying it, and that we're getting funds to those who can't afford it. Sometimes they can't afford it, right? So we need to make sure that those people who are at risk are also taken care of.
Trinity professor conducted a study, and he found that District 5 residents are disproportionately taking out payday loans to pay their utilities. And when we look at the SAW's pay rate structure, it disproportionately impacts residential users. Rather than the more you use, the higher your rate, as it stands, the less you use, your higher the rate. And who does that benefit? That benefits big business who are advertising San Antonio as a city of unlimited water. And when we look, what we can do, a solution to take care of that, is look at who we are appointing to our boards. Oftentimes, they're folks tied to big business interests, and we need to be sure we're appointing folks that have community interests first to these boards.
Okay, rebuttal. Very good. Number 7, District 5 boundaries incorporate much of the area covered by Westside Neighborhood Associations Coalition, plus a significant portion of Southside neighborhoods. How can you best represent all of D5 with its different issues and priorities? Sorry, go ahead, Teri. Sorry.
Absolutely. So I attended high school at Burbank, Paris, in the Lone Star area, and I grew up off of Guadalupe and Trinity. So I understand, the differences when it comes to what each neighborhood needs. In addition to that, again, I serve on the Tier 1 Neighborhood Coalition Steering Committee. So I understand the importance of listening to each neighborhood to understand all of our different concerns and priorities. What our campaign is proposing is a participatory budget. So what that looks like is every constituent will give input on where we want to spend our money. And this isn't a crazy idea. Councilman Courage has implemented something similar, and that's what we need to do to ensure that we have a say on where our money gets spent.
Absolutely. So I've been walking all District 5. I know District 5. I grew up on John McMullen. So I know that District 5 is so vastly different. What I can tell you is that I'm not going to be focused on one topic only, one side of town. I know that Miss Emma on Gladstone, she has problems with her sidewalks and streets. I know that Miss Salazar off of Lava, just south of the Lone Star District, doesn't have sidewalks. So I can tell you this right now, that I know the concerns of District 5, and I'm not going to be focused on one topic only. I'm going to be focused on Ms. Karen's concerns over there. I'm going to be focused on Jeff's concerns over there. And I'm going to be focused on Ms. Francine, who lives in one of the nursing homes or one of the assisted living homes, because she's just as important as everybody else in District 5. We need to be taking care of everybody in District 5 and not be focused on one topic only in District 5.
Absolutely. When we talk about wealth building and we look at the disproportionately how District 5 is the most economically poor district, and we're seeing how the city is allowing the demolition of our most affordable housing stock. If we continue to allow the city and bad real estate actors to demolish our homes and allow our families to lose their homes to predatory practices, we lose that generational wealth. We lose that opportunity for generational wealth. So when we talk about land use and zoning, this can drastically impact the ways in which someone lives their life. If you do not have a home,
I just want to remind you all that I just talked about generational wealth. And the only way that we're going to get generational wealth is if we get people to own homes. We need to get home ownership in District 5. We need to revamp the older homes. We need to make sure that a historical district doesn't hit homes so that we can't rehab our homes, that we can't put insulation in our homes, so that Mr. Martinez can afford it. Because I'll tell you what, the people at Alamo Heights, they can afford the historic district. The business owners and the people who live in our district cannot.
Okay. Next question. Under equity governing, because of limited digital access by many residents, how will you assure that the 4 public libraries in D5 offer the programming and resources like sufficient computers, tech assistance, financial counseling, and incidental needed by this community.
Absolutely, we do. We need this in our library. Make sure that our libraries are the 21st century libraries in the city, right? So we need to make sure that there's digital connections. We need to make sure there's computers for the kids to use. We need to make sure that all those things that bring us into the 21st century are there. How are we going to do that? One of the ways that we could do that was in Prop A. Prop A passed, and I voted for Prop A. Those are funds that we can use for our libraries, not just for infrastructure. I think that Prop A is the answer for that. But on top of that, I think that we need to hold our stakeholders and our communities responsible, the developers in our communities responsible, and have them pay into our communities. When I'm giving you an incentive, maybe you need to be buying those computers for our libraries, because the money I'm giving you is our money, and that money needs to come back into our community.
Yeah, so when you look at the recent budget that was passed, we cut back funding from youth and senior centers. We cut back funding into our libraries. So where we need to start is ensuring that we're investing in us, investing in our social services, in our public spaces, in our public libraries. Because we need to be sure these spaces are accessible for longer times of the day and not just for a short period. In addition to that, we need to do a better job at partnering with our ISPs and the surrounding universities. Because yes, we could close the digital divide, but we also need assistance with digital literacy. And we have a great support system within District 5 to reach out to these universities and ISP to ensure that we're providing more than a digital inclusion.
Um, 9. How will you preserve the West Side's cultural heritage?
When we talk about preservation, we need to acknowledge that we do need to invest in the arts, right? Because that's how it connects people, it brings people together, it symbolizes history. So we need to be sure that we're adequately funding the arts, and when we incentivize the development of something new, that we're asking, are you going to hire local artists? You need to be sure that, you know, when it comes to the Unified Development Code, that we are challenging the demolition of our historic buildings. Do not knowingly buy a historic building if you know it comes with barriers. You know, I think it speaks to the volumes of the arrogance of developers to know that they're buying a historic building and know that they can bypass every city entity.
Okay. How will you preserve the West Side's cultural heritage?
Absolutely. We all know that the West Side is rich in heritage and culture, right? So we need to make sure that our business owners that are coming in and our developers that are coming in are also giving back into the culture of our neighborhoods. We need to make sure that they're funding arts, that they're funding the music, the dance of our neighborhoods. District 5 is very unique. It changes from place to place, but we need to make sure that we're giving the incentives so that we can keep the art and the dance and the music in our neighborhoods, in our district. We can also use the money from Prop A if we need to, so that we can fund some of those programs, so that we can teach our kids what their culture is, so that we can hold what we need to do to keep those kids and our people in our district in the culture that they know and that they cherish. I would also say that we need to partner up with our universities, such as UTSA, which is coming down to the west side of downtown San Antonio, so that they're teaching those art programs and they're teaching our artists, and that the people that live in that area can utilize all of those things and make sure that the culture in our district is safe.
I would argue that you know, history and cultural preservation is also our architecture. Right now, what we're seeing in District 5 is a disproportionate amount of demolition being issued within our district and our community. Right now, we make up more than double the issue demolitions than any other district. So we need to be sure that we're doing a better job, again, in investing programs that help folks rehab their homes and acknowledge that our shotgun architecture, rather, is just as valuable as any Victorian home.
So I was down at the Lone Star District the other day, their neighborhood association meeting. We know, and I know as a neighborhood president, that there's nothing worse than a building that's sitting vacant, right? Because the only thing that's going to happen in those vacant buildings in our neighborhoods is we're going to get crime, we're going to get houseless people, and everything that we don't need in our neighborhoods. Yes, by all means, let's save our buildings. But at what price does that come when a building sits vacant for 25 years? We need to make sure that what we're doing with these buildings is the best thing for our communities, and that we're listening to people like you.
All right, here we go. Number 10. What police reforms, if any, do you suggest? Rudy?
So recently we had the Prop B, right? The one that was there for police reform. It was going to take away the, I'm sorry, I can't think of. It was going to take away the officer's ability to negotiate, right? I worked down there for 17 years. I know these officers. These officers work hard. These officers are in your neighborhoods. If that had passed, we would have been punishing so many good officers. Where this needs to happen at, where reform needs to happen at, is a negotiating table. If anyone is at fault for not getting these accountability issues taken care of, it would be the folks who are at that negotiating table. But it needs to happen at the negotiating table, and it will happen at the negotiating table. We need to take care of officers. Our officers are the people who take care of us, take care of our neighborhoods. They're your safe officers for your neighborhood association. And I know that some of the presidents out here know those safe officers, and they know they work hard. There are issues, needs to be taken care of. I won't argue about that, but that needs to be done at the negotiating table. And I know in good faith that the association and the city, after these negotiations are over, will come forth with something that's going to be good for all of District 5.
So I was invited to a meeting with Chief McManus and several captains, and we had a great conversation about public safety and how public safety is more than police. Public safety is investing in infrastructure to ensure that we have lit alleyways, and we need to be sure that we're investing in programs that community wants to see more of. Speaking to neighborhood association leaders, folks love their safe officers. However, that program, we need to be sure that that's where we're prioritizing. In addition to that, we're a growing city and we only have roughly 13, 14 mental health officers. We need to be sure that we're asking for more and we have more clinician folks partnering with our police officers so that way we have systemic solutions to our systemic problems.
Okay. Let's do the next question here is, what is your stance on a higher living wage for the workers of San Antonio?
Absolutely. We need to be sure that workers also have access to paid sick leave. We need to ensure that our workers have access to $20 livable wage. We need to be sure that we're looking at the jobs we already have and we're holding their employers accountable for providing these livable wages. We don't need to import jobs. We just need to be sure that the folks already here providing those services are treating their workers well, providing good benefits and good pay. And we do that by ensuring that we don't put any big business interests onto our boards and committees. And I commit to you all here that I will not appoint anyone connected to the chambers onto a board.
So I'm going to start off just by saying this, that in a perfect magical world, everybody gets $20, right? And everybody gets $20. But that's not going to happen. Because when you start paying $20 and paid sick leave, you're going to put business out of business. And we don't need to be doing that on the West Side. We need to keep our businesses on the west side and in District 5. What we need to do is we need to bring better jobs in. We need to bring in education for those people. We need to bring in good jobs that pay well. But we also need to be protecting our business owners because our business owners don't need to go out of business. We need to take care of our business owners because what's going to happen is when they're gone, then we're adding on to the unemployment and we don't need more unemployment. Living wages, great. If we could do it, great. But if we can't do it, we need to find a better way to do it because giving $20 an hour is not going to happen because we're only going to make our neighborhoods worse than they are, and we're going to lose our business owners. That's where that goes. And basically, that's about it. In a magical world, hey, it's great. It might happen, but this is not a magical world.
Wow. Livable wages create poverty. That's totally backwards. We need to make sure, you don't need to bring business here. Well, let me say, we can create jobs for the existing District 5 residents. Because what's the point of bringing in a big job if no one in District 5 can get that job? That's not for us. So we need to invest in us, provide jobs for the established communities of District 5. If not, we will continue to get left behind, and that's why I ask for your support because business as usual, it's not working.
So I'm going to draw from my experiences because the jobs are there. I know because I live by Fort San Antonio. There's 16,000 good paying jobs over there. So what we need to do is we need to be working with those companies. We need to be working with our colleges and universities, and we need to be working with the city to make sure that people are being educated for those jobs and that somebody else doesn't come in and get those jobs. It can happen. We can have livable wages. We just can't put it on the back of our small business owners because our small business owners are suffering already. My niece is a small business owner, and August 5th she'll be closing because she can't afford all the taxes that come along with a small business.
All right, the next one, number 12, is explain. And this is for yourself, Rudy, to start with. Explain what you would have done to protect residents and create equity in terms of tests, care, and vaccine distribution during the COVID pandemic.
So it should have happened, and this is what should have happened, is that we should have, first of all, the federal government was not any help, right? We had an administration just, it was not helping us. So we should have held those people accountable. But once those vaccines were out there, we should have been able to reach the people, either by communication, mass communication. We should have had mobile spots so people could go and get vaccinated pretty quickly, right? I visited doors during my campaign where people were afraid to come out. People couldn't come out. People couldn't make it to the Alamo to get those shots. We should have been taking those shots to them at the very beginning. It happened eventually, but that's not when it should have happened, right? So we also should have identified those most vulnerable in our district because we got so many vulnerable people in our district. Our seniors are very vulnerable. I mean, we should have been making sure that our seniors were first in line at their homes, in their assisted living homes. So that's what should have happened. We should have been able to get to those people who are most vulnerable. I'm not vulnerable. I was able to go down there and take care of it. But those vaccines should have been going out to the people where they were at. And it should have come to District 5 first, because District 5 is so underfunded with health, and we've got disparities in health. So it should have come to District 5.
For the last several years, I've served on the Texas Organizing Project Health Care Committee, where we've been fighting for Medicare expansion through the Think of It Texas campaign. And when we look at health disparities, we already knew that District 5 was the most economically poor district. We already knew that we had generational households. We already knew that we worked in the hospitality industry, and we failed to implement testing sites close to 78207. We failed to put the vaccine in the 78207. It's not that hard. The solutions do not have to be hard. It takes that going door to door as they do the emergency housing assisted outreach program, right off on every door of the 7207 to ask folks if they were doing okay, if they needed anything, and connected them to city services. We must and can do better. And I'm proud to say that I've been endorsed by County Commissioner Justin Rodriguez, who has led in bringing mobile clinics into District 5 and into the 7207.
Okay, number 13. What measures would you support to reduce the effects of climate change on our public health? We have Teri.
We need to acknowledge that the climate crisis is not coming; it's already here, and we felt that during the winter storm. You know, we're only going to experience more extreme weather conditions if we continue to fail to implement mitigation measures. In addition to that, right, the solutions aren't that hard. You know, thinking about a housing crisis, we're in a new deal moment. Folks are without work. We need to create jobs quick. We don't have time for 4-year programs. These folks are ready to get certifications and we're ready to go to work. And what we can do in District 5 is create union jobs that pay a livable wage, will uproot people out of their hardships, and we can preserve our most affordable housing stock by helping our neighbors bring their homes up to code, and doing that will minimize our carbon footprint.
So yes, we do have a climate problem. That's a given. We know that already, right? But what we need to do is we need to make sure that some of the steps being taken don't hurt our folks, right? We got the climate action that was just passed, and I think that goes far enough. And I think that if we need to visit that again and make sure that it goes further, we can do that. But I would argue that yes, we do have an older housing stock in District 5. Yes, we do need to get those houses weatherized. But once we start hitting again historic districts in our older neighborhoods, we can't change those windows. We can't put insulation in the houses. We can't change the siding. It's going to cost a lot more for those people to do it. It's going to cost a lot more. So we need to weatherize. Yes, we need to do that. We need to give incentives to our folks that can't afford what's coming. I mean, window units in a house, that's not going to work. That's not going to work. We need to make houses in our district that are very much affordable and that are weatherized in our district. And we need to weatherize our houses. Again, if you do the historic designation, that's not going to happen. Yes, absolutely. We need to take care of that climate change, and we need to address the climate change. Absolutely.
Rebuttal. Rebuttal. Number 14. What kinds of policies, if any, will you pursue to promote social and racial justice in our community? Start with Rudy.
Absolutely, we do. We need to do that. We need to promote social and racial justice in our communities. But you know, social and racial, I'm sorry, it's social and racial justice. There you go. Thank you. Starts at home, and it starts with education. It starts in our schools. We need to be very, very open to one another and to know each other, to promote each other. We need to do that at the city level. But I'll tell you what also happens. It can also happen within our departments, with our police department, with the school, the after school programs we have. We need to fund our after school programs so that we're promoting social and racial justice. It starts at the courts. I mean, at the courts, today I was sitting there talking to one of our judges. And at the courts, when we just hit somebody with fines for minor drug offenses, and we put them in for a long time. That's not right. And it's only hitting the brown and the black people. And we don't need to be doing that. We need to be helping those people. We need to get those people off the drugs that they have. We need to, give them a hand forward and give them the jobs. And we need to be promoting social and racial justice that way. It starts at home, it starts at the schools, and it starts in our courts, and it starts in our police departments. That's where we need to take it to.
Fundamental to our campaign is social and economic justice, because systemic problems call for systemic solutions. And we need to be sure that our city's budget reflects the needs of community. We need to be sure that we're investing in youth and senior centers. We need to reactivate the Willie Velasquez Center into an adult literacy center so we can uplift our community. We need to be sure that we implement a site and release ordinance, sure that our neighbors aren't being arrested for, something minor. We need to be sure that our communities are invested to bring our communities to social and economic justice. Is going to take the whole commitment of our campaign and organized communities to ensure that we push this policy together. This isn't about me. This is about us. Together, we'll push this whole policy forward.
Okay. Yes. Is there a last? No. Okay, real fine. Then that's the last of our questions. We now want to have Alma opinion. Invite you to ask questions that you think are appropriate to have.
So we're doing the schedule, so we're gonna go ahead and open up the floor to ask the questions. So if anybody wants to ask a question. Floor is open.
I think she does too.
Yeah, Basila Fox is one of those buildings that we talked about, and what would be the immediate steps you take to get that building on Marshall's? That's the one I make sure was everybody, not the vacant, neglected piece of property. Immediate steps are needed.
Thank you.
Let's go ahead. Let's start. Yeah. Who was up next? You were.
So, sir, the building that you're talking about is it's a vacant building?
Yes.
It's a vacant building. Again, like I said earlier, there's nothing worse for you in your neighborhood than having a vacant building, right? So we need to redevelop that building. We need to bring somebody in that can redevelop that building. If we need to, then we need to find the funds through the city so that that building can be redeveloped. But it shouldn't be sitting there empty. It should be an active building. It should be a building with business in it, maybe. It should be a building that's bringing money back into the neighborhood, because when a building sits empty, it's not doing anything for a neighborhood. It's just sitting there empty and it's bringing in crime to the neighborhood. So we need to redevelop that building. We need to find the city funds to redevelop that building. And we need to bring in the right developers for your neighborhood to redevelop that building.
Yeah, I've spoken to some folks who neighbor the Priscilla Fox, and we've had conversations about how it would be a great space to activate to put office spaces. Spoke to this Our Lady of the Lake graduate who wants to open up a practice in District 5, but there are no office spaces. So we have an opportunity to put affordable office spaces so folks who want to serve in District 5 and are from District 5 have an affordable office space to practice. In addition to that, right, this all depends on how the project's funded. But if public money is used, we have an opportunity to put a healthy grocery store to address the food desert within that portion of District 5. So we have a lot of room to be innovative, to reactivate this building, and I look forward to working with the community on that.
I'd like to thank Rudy for about a month ago.
It's not a question.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. My friend fell. He was riding his bike around Kennedy High School, and he tripped the concrete that was neglected. I told Rudy about it. And he had it fixed. So I'd like to thank you for that.
Yeah.
District 5 is one of the most obese and unhealthy parts of town and one of the most obese cities in San Antonio. As council person, what is your plan to remove these food deserts and to ensure that we have a physically and mentally healthy community?
Absolutely. What we need to do is activate these vacant lots that are all throughout District 5. We have an opportunity to implement community gardens and to ensure that we all have access to safe and free, healthy food. In addition to that, we need to partner with our ISGs to ensure that we're putting community gardens within our school campuses. You know, when we look at the Advanced Learning Academy, they have a garden and chickens, and students get to take home fresh eggs and fresh vegetables. So we need to ensure that schools within District 5, our students also have that opportunity to have access to food. But in addition to that, right, it comes down to ensuring that we're funding our youth and senior centers. So when it's super hot and folks don't want to be out, our kids and community have full spaces to be active.
Absolutely, and it's all about activity, right? We need to make sure that our kids are active. We need to make sure that those food deserts are addressed. We need to work with the businesses that are there already to make sure that the healthy food is getting there. We also need to make sure that we're not just getting a McDonald's, but that we're getting other places that are healthy within our neighborhoods. You know, Pandora, the Panora breads, they do really good. We need those in our neighborhoods. We need to be working with that corner store to make sure that corner store is getting the supply that they need so that they can sell to our folks out there. But interestingly enough, I was working over at the Catholic Charities the other day, and they have a community garden. So we do need community gardens throughout District 5. I would just say that we need to be careful where we're putting all those community gardens at and those spaces, because sometimes I know that as a neighborhood association, those don't work. People don't take care of them. Who's going to take care of them, and how are you going to pay for them? I'm sure not all of our business owners out there have the money to be paying for those community gardens. If it works in the neighborhood and the neighborhoods can do it, then that's how we need to be doing it. Let me just say real quickly that I fought a few years ago to get covers over our basketball courts over at Kennedy Park to keep our kids active. I got those covers for that basketball court. I got the covers for our parks. I know how to do that already. So when I move forward, I'll be doing that, and I'll be making sure that our kids are active in the community.
First of all, just thank you to both of you for taking the time to be out here to speak to all of us. As I'm sure all of us know, we've had the same representation in this district for 8 years. And so I would love to hear from each candidate what you think about that representation, and if you think there needs to be change in how our district is led, what exact things you think need to change going forwards after this next election.
So our representation, let's just say who that was, Shirley Gonzalez, right? Shirley Gonzalez has laid a great foundation for both Teri and I to work with, right? Shirley Gonzalez is really good at bringing in more jobs, good business, housing. She did the equity lens, and the equity lens is an incredible program to work with, because that looks at the needs in each district and identifies that district that needs the most needs and brings those funds into that district. District 5 benefited from that. How would I be different from Shirley Gonzalez? I'm not Shirley Gonzalez. I'm Rudy Lopez. I'm coming in with my own thoughts and ideas. I know what it takes to build a neighborhood. I know because I've worked with my neighborhood for 8 years, and I know that growth needs to happen in a neighborhood. If not, a neighborhood it stagnates. So I'm not Shirley Gonzalez. I'm going to bring in what we need in our neighborhood. But the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to go to you and find out what you want in your neighborhood and what works in your neighborhood, because you're the ones that count. Your votes count. It's not about me, it's about you.
Sounds pretty curly to me. You know, what we need to do different is ensure that we're prioritizing community input over developers, over outside business interests, and that has not what we've seen. I've spoken to neighborhood leader after neighborhood leader who feels that city leadership has advocated on behalf of developers rather than community. It needs to be flipped. Our role is to advocate on behalf of our neighborhoods and constituents, whether they're registered voters or not. And you know, our role is to ensure that we're meeting the material needs of District 5 residents. In addition to that, we need to be sure that we're shifting our public money to us. Again, yes, we could bring in all this development and housing, but if you can't afford to live in it, it's not for us. If we don't have the qualifications or soft skills to get that job, it's not for us. So we need to be sure we're investing in us, and anything we bring is accessible to the established communities of District 5.
Okay, I'd like to know, okay, everybody's talking about the ports and how we can revitalize them or knock them down. Why are we not keeping the money here in town? Why are we having to get developers, $1 billion corporation from California, instead of getting our homegrown contractors here? I'm very sure that it's not that expensive to redo 250 apartments. And it's not $100 million, whether you knock them down and rebuild them, or if you step up and get the community to start rehabbing them. Either way, it should be homegrown. It should be us keeping the money in the city. How do y'all feel about that?
Absolutely, absolutely. I'm all about San Antonio first. We need to be looking at our contractors. We need to look at our business owners here in San Antonio. And we need to be giving those contracts to those people first. It might not always work sometimes, because sometimes we just don't have what we need here in San Antonio. But that's what we need to be looking at first. The money needs to stay here in San Antonio. The people that are working to build those apartments, like you said, or those homes, or those businesses need to be the people from here in San Antonio, contractors here in San Antonio. So that money needs to stay here. The only thing I would say about that is that we also need to make sure that what we're doing is right for the community and it's not costing the community more than it should. At times, we might not need to look outside the community because it's going to be the community's money we're looking at. We need to be good stewards of the money that you're investing in us. And we need to make sure that we're getting the best deal possible at all times.
Absolutely, and we need to be sure that we're prioritizing nonprofit developers over for-profit developers. And that's what we're seeing, is that we're hiring out-of-state for-profit developers who don't even hire from our communities, who do not even provide livable wages. And those are infrastructure jobs, right? Those jobs don't last. Once the project's done, they're gone. So we need to be sure that with projects constructed with our public money, that once the project's completed, they're also hiring from the community. And we need to follow up to ensure that they are hiring from the community and are paying livable wages.
I have a question. In my area, in my neighborhood association, I've worked with several residents, and the property taxes is a big issue because some of our residents, they are not aware about how to protest the taxes. Okay, and you have residents that are living in depreciated homes, and they're paying taxes as much as someone in the north side, and they've never protested their taxes. They keep going up. What would you bring in to assist these residents, programs, or how can we help these families, because they're unaware of what needs to be done. They get a letter and they don't know what to do with it.
I'm a strong proponent of coalition building and having conversations with folks in DC, because ultimately that's where our funding and that's where everything comes down from. So we need to be sure we're organizing rather with our state representatives. For example, our campaign has been endorsed by State Representative Diego Bernal. He has a history of pushing state legislation to fight for property tax relief for generational homeowners. So we need to be sure that if District 5 constituents have an issue, that it is our duty, our role to ensure that our state representatives have policy that reflects our needs in District 5. In addition to that, we need to partner with nonprofits who are already doing the work. For example, Rich Acosta, My City's My Home, has been phenomenal going door to door, making sure that District 5 residents know that they have, know whether or not they have the homestead exemption, and trains folks on how to protest their property taxes. We need to be sure we're connecting with folks and supporting those nonprofits that are doing great work.
Well, once again, Mr. Acosta, I know the work you do, and thank you for the work that you do. So we need to be working with organizations like this that help people and protest our taxes. But what I'm going to say, that in the 8 years that I've been a neighborhood president already, we've taught classes on how to go and protest your taxes. We've taught people. The other thing we've done, and I'm going to bring this up, because I've watched over the older folks in my neighborhood. And when predatory buyers were out there, we made sure that if they were going to sell, that they got the value of their home and not what they paid for a home 30 years ago. Because there's a lot of predatory buyers out there that will do that. So I can say that in my office, when I'm there, we're going to do the program so that you can protest your taxes, because we need to know how to do that. I think I was just talking to a lady yesterday that she was doing downtown tax office, and they told her, "Oh, your yard's really nice." No, my yard's not nice. It's not worth $30,000, $40,000, $50,000. So we taught her what she needed to do to take to the tax office so that she could protest her taxes. That's what we need to do. We need to be a council that's taking care of the people, teaching them how to protest, and making sure that you're not getting predatory buyers, and that people are getting what the value of their homes is, and not less than that.
I think it's important that we highlight Rudy's failure to make the connection that all this building and new development that he wants to incentivize, it has negative consequences, right? It destabilizes the surrounding neighborhoods. And if we go to displacement, we're at risk of quadruple property taxes. So we need to be sure we're prioritizing those displacement measures, because if we continue to incentivize, it's at the cost of us.
So what I have to say about that is I've been working for my neighborhood association for 8 years, right? I've never brought anything into a neighborhood that's not going to work for the neighborhood and that's going to destroy a neighborhood. I have the experience, 8 years of experience. I think Ms. Castillo is lacking in telling you that she hasn't been working with a neighborhood association for 8 years. She hasn't been working with the tax assessor's office. She hasn't been working with the people in her neighborhood like I've been working in my neighborhood for 8 years. I know that what a neighborhood needs is growth and not stagnation, but it's got to be responsible growth, and that growth is what I've brought into my neighborhood. We have new homes coming in. It's not destroying the neighborhood. We have 80 new homes.
All right, I think we're at this point where we're okay. Well, whatever the pleasure. 4 quick ones, right? Okay. No rebuttals. Yeah. Okay. Let's go ahead and start with the first lady here.
This, locate your offices once you get elected. That office. And also, you said that you've been walking the Westside or District 5. I haven't seen anybody in my side of town. We're between Guadalupe and New Laredo Highway and over beyond the creek, all the way to 19th Street. I haven't seen anybody. I see a few signs for both of you, but I don't see you walking the block. I don't see you coming to see the people that actually live there. I don't see any of you. And I don't think that's right. You want to get voted in? Come to my street. Come to my street, talk to my neighbors. Talk to the people whose houses are falling down. Talk to them. And then we'll see if you're gonna get their vote. Thank you.
Without saying, Google Teri Castillo and the historic Westside prior to the election to see what populates. Google this guy, his association, nada. So absolutely, you know, we're at the north. I'm sorry if we haven't made it here on our way to you. And we'll see you at your house.
So ma'am, senora, I know your neighborhood. I know your neighborhood by heart. You're just south of me. You're the Quintana area. I know the folks that live out that way. I worked off of the Laredo Highway. I walked those streets when I was growing up. I worked at the Easy Shop. Do you remember the Easy Shop that used to be off the Laredo Highway? And the Easy Shop that used to be off of Bynum, right there in Quintana and Bynum. I worked those areas. I know those neighborhoods. I walked those neighborhoods, and I have been walking those neighborhoods. And I'm sorry you just haven't seen me in your neighborhood, but I've been walking out there, and I know that my block walkers have been walking out there. I know those houses. I know what those conditions of those houses are, and I know what the people need out there. They need help. They need a lot of help, and I'm going to make sure that they get that help. I'm not sure what Ms. Castillo just said right now, but I'm not here for that. I'm here for you. And I'm going to make sure that I get out there and I visit you and I visit your neighbors because I know that neighborhood. I grew up in that neighborhood. That is my neighborhood too.
So in District 5, we're very fortunate to have some universities within our district. Do either of you have any plans to align yourself with any of the universities so that we are capturing the youth of San Antonio to come in, educate themselves, and hopefully in the end want to give back as members of the District 5 community? I think there's a huge opportunity for growth and improvement to align in education. Namely because number one of the facade of District 5 and because of the crime rates in District 5. So do either of you have any plans to work on that?
Absolutely. We have some wonderful universities in District 5. I spoke to a few people, the gentleman in particular that worked over at Our Lady of the Lake. What's impressive about that is he worked over at Our Lady of the Lake and he lives just a few blocks away from Our Lady of the Lake. So we need to make sure that we're keeping them in the neighborhood, right? But what I will say is I live over by Fort San Antonio, right? And so we need to be partnering up with places like Fort San Antonio so that our schools in our district are teaching the jobs that they need at Fort San Antonio. On top of that, you're right, we need to keep those people in our neighborhoods. That's why I'm working with some developers in my neighborhood to build 80 new homes so that those people that are learning at our universities and can work in our neighborhood, stay in our neighborhood. We need to give them an incentive to stay here in the neighborhood. You know, if the neighborhood isn't changing and you're not giving them the amenities that they need, then why are they going to stay here? We need to give them those amenities that they need. We need to give them the homes that they're looking for. And we need to give them the education that they're looking for. So we need to bring all the stakeholders to the table and make sure that we're keeping those kids, those people in our neighborhood, and that we're holding everybody along the way accountable.
Absolutely. I'm proud to have the support of Students for Teri. I need to have this conversation with our universities because we have the opportunity to provide support to District 5 residents through Our Lady of the Lake social work program, which my sister's about to graduate from. We also have the opportunity to work with UTSA's education program and provide tutoring to our students within Harlandale ISD, SAISD, and Edgewood ISD. There's plenty of room and there's a lot of opportunity to collaborate, and I look forward to doing that with you.
Well, which council can we hope to sit on and why?
The neighborhood and cultures subcommittee is what I would like to serve on. As when we look at the economic pressures that are facing District 5, all of it is connected to our neighborhoods. So we need to be sure that we have organized neighborhoods to ensure that we're pushing for the policy and the funding necessary to ensure that our neighborhoods are going to endure all this new development coming in. We need to be sure that we're having conversations with folks already on these committees on how we can continue to push these really good policies forward. For example, the under one rich program, we need to be sure we're investing in that because that's where District 5 benefits the most. In addition to that, I would like to serve on the Transportation Committee. I, think when we look at public transit-oriented development and what's coming to District 5, we have an opportunity to steer that in a way that works for us.
So I too would like to be on the Neighborhood and Culture Committee. I know that District 5 is changing. I know that we need to be providing the housing that we need in District 5 and that we're not chasing people off from District 5. So we need to be providing the incentives that they need to stay in their homes. I know that District 5 is going to change and we need to give the housing stock that we need in District 5. We need to revitalize our homes in District 5, like the homes off of Roosevelt. Those are beautiful homes and we need to make sure that we're holding on to those homes. But we need to make sure that we're giving the incentives to the folks out there so that they can stay in those homes. Also, the transportation one for me, I serve on the Port Regional Land Use Commission. And I know that we've identified those corridors where people are living and that people need transportation to get to work and from work. We need to make sure that the transportation that San Antonio needs for the 21st century is the best transportation that will get people around with no wait and quick time. So the transportation is important. We need to make sure that it's the best transportation that we can get. I know that for older folks, you don't just catch the bus. You have to wait for a shuttle to pick you up. We need to make sure that for our seniors, they have the best transportation possible through our transportation committee as well.
Okay, we reached that point where we're going to have a closing statements made, and Teri, you started first part, and we will have you start on this wrap up. Let's hear it for these candidates. 5 colleagues, they're on here trying to make it for each of us. Rudy, Teri, right after.
So again, my name is Rudy Lopez, and I'm running for City Council District 5. I've had years of experience already. I've worked with my neighborhood association. I've worked with my members, with my neighborhood association in my community. I've worked with the developers to bring in responsible development into our neighborhood. I've worked with all the stakeholders that it takes to make our neighborhood better. My dream for District 5 is to have a vibrant District 5, to have a District 5 with good education, good businesses, protecting our small businesses, with education that's outstanding, and where people want to come back and visit. I was talking the other day to the owner of Mr. P's, and he was telling me about Guadalupe Street when his mom was growing up. His mom remembers a Guadalupe Street that had shops and that had restaurants, and that people weren't afraid to walk around and visit, right? So that's the kind of Westside that we need. That's the kind of District 5 that we need. No matter if it's over Guadalupe or if it's on Roosevelt, it doesn't make a difference. We need to have a vibrant District 5. And the only way we're going to be able to do that is to promote our small businesses, to promote development, to promote that people in District 5 are getting just what they need, And none of that's going to happen unless you're a stakeholder and you're at the table. So I'll make sure that all of y'all are the stakeholders at that table. Lastly, I'd like to say one thing. Don't forget to go out and vote for Rudy Lopez. And I'm going to do this one other way. Que salgan todos a votar. Ven muy pronto a votar la votación. Votación va a comenzar el 24 de mayo hasta el 1 de junio. Y ahí elección comienza el día 5 de junio, que cuando salen a votar, votan por Rudy Lopez.
I'm Teri Castillo, and I'm ready to be your next city council. I have the experience of organizing in and outside of City Hall. I have the experience of going to City Hall and advocating on behalf of my neighbors to ensure that our community isn't mass displaced. I have the experience of advocating on behalf of my neighbors at the Building and Standard Board to ensure that they're not homeless. I have the experience of advocating on behalf of my neighborhood at the zoning commission to ensure that we don't implement zoning practices that benefit large business and developers at the risk of us. We need to acknowledge that we are in the midst of multiple crises, an environmental crisis, an economic crisis, and a housing crisis, all coupled with COVID-19. And District 5 and San Antonio has a duty and an opportunity to lead in the nation by creating green union jobs. We do this by ensuring that we are training folks to decarbonize and retrofit our homes. Doing so will preserve our most affordable housing stock. The choice is clear. We want to continue to see bad policy refashioned under the guise of progress, or do we want real new bold leadership to bring real progress? Vote Teri Castillo, and I appreciate your support. Thank y'all.
Decision is to be our next District 5 candidate, because it's really, really important that we get out there and vote, because we need to have somebody that's going to represent, right, all the districts in District 5. And so I just wanted to again thank them, and I also want to thank our moderators. Tommy Atkinson. And so, again, I want to thank you all for being here. I know the weather was like unpredictable. And so I would also like to have the members of WNAC or Neighborhood Association come up here, so that way they can see who the faces are that belong to our coalition or neighborhood associations. I'd also like to thank Eric Estrada for doing the stream live on YouTube, and also our sound man, Timothy Payne. They've all done a good job, and again, all the volunteers, because if you all weren't here, we wouldn't be able to make this possible. So it takes everyone to make this possible. So again, thank you. So I'd like to recognize our members to come up here. Come on up here. I want everybody to see. I can see you. You know, we all do this on a voluntary basis. You know, we do not get paid in any way, shape, or form. We just want to do what's best for our community. I know Roosevelt is here, sir. Just because we're Westside doesn't mean that, you know, you can't come up here. Just come up here. Yeah. Roosevelt up here as well. You know, so that's what I'm saying, that we all need to work together regardless as to what side of town you all live in, because we want to make our district better. I mean, we have to make it work. We have to hold the candidates accountable as well. So we're going to have a new member coming in into District 5. So thank you. Anything? Anybody want to say anything? Nothing. Everybody's being really shy. Okay. Miss Kilmer. There's Miss Kilmer. Yes. There's Miss Kilmer. Miss Kilmer is from Loma Park, and she's very, very helpful in her own way. Very feisty, right, Miss Kilmer? She gets after me. Okay, if you were out there having a fun, sure that everybody was thinking, signing.